Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Screen Club. My name is Sarah Naraki. I am the director of Wealthy Theater and founder of Cinema Lab, which is another wonderful discussion event that we do every month in conjunction with Screen Club. And I am joined here by two familiar, lovely faces, Caleb and Virginia. How are you guys doing tonight?
Oh, I'm so excited.
So hungry.
Yeah, me too.
So
Why
hungry.
didn't we have plates of food so we can eat while we talk about food shows?
Slurping pasta.
Oh, would have been good. Would have sounded good for the podcast too.
People famously love to hear people eat. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what is that called? ASMR or something like that? Yeah.
There's a girl on YouTube that eats pickles. And I'm not going to lie, the sound of the crunch is actually very, very soothing.
Yeah, well, we'll have to check that out. Maybe we'll do a follow-up episode.
Yeah, we'll link to that after.
Check the show notes. Yeah.
So if we have anyone tuning in who has not been part of these chats before, Screen Club and Cinema Lab are book club style discussions where we'll pick either a TV show for Screen Club or a movie for Cinema Lab. And we kind of lead a discussion, but we like to encourage the audience to chime in as well. Normally, we would host these discussions in person at Wealthy Theater in the Micro Cinema, but since we're trying to keep it safe, we're going to do it virtually. But please do comment on whatever you're watching on Facebook, YouTube. Let us know what you think, what your favorite shows are, anything like that. So normally I would also say spoiler alert, but I don't really think that there's too much to spoil with the reality food shows. But I guess spoiler alert in case we talk about who wins a game or something.
For legal reasons, spoiler alert.
Exactly. For legal reasons, we are covered. So tonight, Virginia is taking us on a trip to Flavortown, and I am very excited about this. I personally love when things are really stressful, just watching food reality shows like Giada De Laurentiis Cooking or Barefoot Contessa or any of those, and we're going to get into all that. But Virginia, tell us why you wanted to talk about Guy Fieri. Why? What's up with Flavortown?
Well, first of all, great choices for food people that you just named. Barefoot Contessa is how I hope to one day retire, but by retire I mean be 42 and just
drink like the giant
live
thing
on
of
a
wine.
vineyard. Yes. My husband hangs out occasionally. Mostly he does his own thing. I don't know. I'm just always going to have the best ingredients. Store-bought is fine if you need, but I'm going to hand make most things and it's going to be amazing. I'm really excited because we have done a lot of shows this season of Screen Club, and we kind of got to a point where I just had a mini breakdown and was like, guys, I can no longer watch people be murdered, talk about murder, fantasize murder, play chess. There was a lot of heavy things happening, right? And I really couldn't, I just needed a break. And so we did the really fantastic Mystery Science Theater episode, which was so wonderful and felt like such a balm to me. And then we kind of got to how we wanted to wrap up the season. And I really was just super honest because you guys are my friends IRL. So you hear me talk about stuff like this all the time. And I was like, yo, I've been watching Tournament of Champions with Guy Fieri and all these celebrity chefs. I've been rewatching Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I've been watching Guy's Grocery Games. And I've been kind of just absorbing myself into this world of bleach blonde hair and oftentimes backwards sunglasses.
How does he even get them to stay there? That's my question.
I think he had a parent that probably rotated his head appropriately as an infant. And so he has a crown where you're supposed to have. I have a flat part of my head, so I can't wear headscarves without them kind of just popping right off. But I'm assuming his parents were probably just very attentive in in infant years.
He seems like he's
also there's probably a lot
adjusted.
of gel in there, so that also might just act like a sharp shelf,
Sharp shelf.
That's my vocal warm-up for later. But yeah, I just was, this is the TV that I've been watching, and I identify as a filmmaker, someone who makes films. I identify as a film lover. I identify as somebody who loves talking about the theory behind storytelling, but I also love it when I'm literally just watching somebody make a panna cotta or homemade pasta or a seafood dish that's so spicy it makes the judge have to comically chug milk from a baby bottle, because that's what they've set up in the rules of this world of Flavortown, and I'm here for it. And so I kind of messaged you guys and I was like, this might be weird, but like, could we talk about like food TV as a culture and use Guy Fieri as like this kind of point person, this Trojan horse almost, as a way to kind of open us in to talk about the genre of food TV in general, because I think it's a really interesting thing. And we were talking off mic before. It's different from any other stylized, non-scripted television, which we typically call it reality TV, but it's non-scripted. It's different than any other kind. It's not necessarily based on drama. It's not based on trying to make another person feel like trash, although one could argue that Gordon Ramsay has made sort of a career of that. But if you've ever seen him do MasterChef Junior, that dude has a soft spot for a kid who has burned his toast. So, you know, there's levels. We all have layers, is what I'm saying. And so I really got into thinking about this as kind of a sociological thing that we as humans have developed. And I'm really excited to kind of dig into it because I get to be context corner tonight, which is wild. But I also wanted to ask you guys to kind of start it off. What is like your first experiences or like earliest memories with like watching somebody cook on TV?
Can I go first? I have such a good answer for this.
Yes.
I mean, I am a longtime fan of these style of shows, but there's one in particular that I think you could argue isn't technically a reality TV food show, but it is quintessential cinema, at least in like the TV realm. And that is the infomercial for, was it the Magic Bullet? The infomercial that's like a half an hour long, where they have such profound character development. You know, someone has a hangover, someone I think was like recently divorced. All these characters that are in the kitchen and they're showing off how you can like make these different meals using this.
And a blender's too heavy, too cumbersome.
It is. They're
gonna drop it on the way out of the counter.
Right, but you can just pop it off, put the lip on it so you can drink right out of it. I loved that infomercial so much, and I think that's what kind of turned me on to Food Network, particularly the more like fun and funky shows, like the energy that Guy Fieri brings. But yeah, I don't know. I love getting lost in the weird stories and seeing people make crazy stuff, and it's fun to kind of live vicariously through them. So there's my answer.
Do you like cooking in real life?
I do. I love baking. I'm much better with baking, but I'm trying to dabble in cooking. So it's a work in progress.
What about you, Caleb?
See, and I don't bake at all, but I'll cook.
I'm the same.
And Sarah, I appreciate that you went really deep and weird with that pick.
Naturally, I have to.
Yeah, I mean, as far as people cooking on TV, I mean, in my family, food was, my mom's side of the family, I should say, just an indescribably essential part of every moment of every day. It was the centerpiece to every activity. My mom and her mom, my grandma, were and are sort of legendary cooks. And there was just no escaping food as a kid. Not that I wanted to, but and then growing up in the 80s, there were definitely a couple of shows that something like the Frugal Gourmet, which is probably pretty forgotten about by now, but that was a big one for us. I think probably because I'm guessing it was on PBS, which is one of the only TV stations we would have gotten at the time. But yeah, it was more just like constant exposure from my mom and grandma, and their, I mean, my mom grew up watching Julia Child cook, and she loved Emeril back in the 90s, and just their sort of all over the place kind of palate exposed me to dishes from all over the world and expanded my understanding of what food could be, to the point where I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day where I told them there's no food that I don't like. There's not a single food that you could put in front of me and I would say, ew, I don't want that. So I think that's heavily due to that,
Well,
that
and
exposure.
I think you just hit on something that's really like central to, I think, why we all love this genre of television is it's an accessibility that we might not have. You might not live in a town that has a restaurant of a certain cuisine that you are then being exposed to. So you have this ability to sort of travel in your mind or like live vicariously through the people that are making or are enjoying these meals. So it makes you kind of feel, I think, at least for me, that connectedness of like, oh, well, why would I be nervous to try a new food?
Yep.
Here it is in front of me. It doesn't look scary or unfamiliar at all. I'm watching somebody build it. So I'm seeing the progression of how it becomes ingredients to how it becomes a meal. And I think that really, to your point, it like, especially on a channel like PBS, right? Because they're going to give you the travel elements. They're going to give you history probably built into what you're, watching somebody prepare. And so there's such a connectedness to all of it that I just think is like, it's so great. I love it.
Agreed.
I feel like I get very philosophical about a dude with super blonde tip highlights, but it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. So getting back to Guy Fieri to be our kind of piece, because we actually do have a guest joining us this evening. We're very excited, and they'll probably be hopping on fairly soon. So I don't want to get too deep into like a rambling history lesson and have to interrupt that. But I will say that when we're talking about Guy Fieri, it's important to note he was the very first ever Food Network star. He won this competition show that Food Network had put on, and Food Network has been around since I believe 1997. It launched as kind of a companion to, other like HGTV kind of networks. And Emeril Lagasse was one of the first kind of live personalities, celebrity chefs. He kind of was, like you had mentioned, your mom was a big fan of him, right? So he is someone that when you think of celebrity chef is fairly ubiquitous in everybody's minds. But the actual very first time that a person cooked on television was actually in 1946. There was a show based in the UK called Cookery with a gentleman named Philip Harbin hosting and cooking. And ever since then, we kind of have had, this access to the kitchens of all of these people around the world. And then as the genre evolved, we started seeing travel kind of become more a part of the story, which is how Guy Fieri really became a household name through his show Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And now he has a dang empire where he's hosting Guy's Grocery Games and Guy's like Backyard Barbecue, because the dude has like an outdoor kitchen nicer than my entire apartment. And he's like brought his kids into it. And one of the most popular shows that's currently on, and I believe has now run for like 30 seasons and is still on, is called Guy's Grocery Games. And I'm very excited because our guest is one of probably the most notable contestants who have been on the show. And she's got such great energy and she's got such great style, and I can't wait to hear about her experience. So I would love to welcome to the stream Chef Jenna. Yay!
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Welcome.
so well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Should I be this way?
Oh, that
There
works.
you go.
That's
There
even
you
better.
go. We get a better look at the hair that way.
Yeah, right.
I love it. So just before we get going, can you pronounce your last name for me so I don't butcher it?
Sure, no one ever says it right. Everyone just calls me Jenna. It's actually a beautiful name, though. It's Archidiacono, which is
See?
archdeacon, so someone back in the day was in the church somewhere.
You've got the in, basically.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
good.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. You are a Grand Rapids staple. You are a Food Network favorite. You have been on my TV a lot lately because before you jumped on, I let everybody know I've been watching a lot of Guys Grocery Games. And I'm so excited because we have been talking about how food television in general is such a different format from what we would know as like reality or non-scripted television, because it has such a real world implication also to the lives of the people that are featured on it. And so you have been on Guys Grocery Games. I believe it's been twice, right?
No, just once.
Just once. The Halloween episode, right?
Yeah, it was a Halloween episode, and I love Halloween. So.
And you made like a very spicy seafood dish, right?
Yeah.
Girl, I told you I've been watching you. I knew.
Yes,
I remember your dish.
You are correct.
So tell us a little bit about that whole experience and what it was like. And, you know, obviously, like, was Carl amazing? I know we miss him terribly, you know, but like, how was that experience for you?
So we'll start from the beginning when we got the phone call from the casting director. They just cold called right to the restaurant, and we thought it was a prank. And one of my friends was hostessing that night. She's like, someone said they're casting from the Food Network and they want to talk to you. I'm like, that's Maurizio. He's pranking me, whatever. And it wasn't a prank. So I took the phone call in the office, and we had many casting calls. I mean, they don't just let anyone on. You have to do a video, and you have to prove that you can cook, because they don't want to look like idiots for having there who doesn't know how to cook. You know what I mean? So they do background checks. They make sure you're legit. And so we did that, and that was, you know, a lot. And you don't know, they're pretty desperate for people too right now, I think, because of COVID, and just they're looking to be exciting. And at that time, I think, you know, it was pretty easy to get on. And so they flew us out. And that day when we were in the car, it was kind of weird because we were just trying to, you know, we're competitors, and that's awkward that you're all in the same kind of van together. They pick us all up at the airport together. But we noticed there were 8 of us, and we were like, this is interesting. So we found out later that they were filming 2 shows the next day. So that made total sense, because some of us had costumes and some of us did not. And we were like trying to put it together, like what's going on. So it was interesting to meet both groups of people, because you just kind of form a bond, even though you only know them for a couple hours, because you're so nervous and you're so like, you have all the feels going on. But we had a wake up call at like 5 a.m. or something ridiculous, and which for a chef of any sort is
right.
Early.
Right.
Like, we're just going to bed normally at that time. So and I think we were all nervous. I don't think we slept well, and they drove us to the location, and it's in right near a guy's house. So when he was asked to do the show, he said, I've heard later on that he said, only if it's near my home will I do it. So they said they made the studio in Santa Rosa near where he lives, and he just drives on over in the morning and drives on home. So the set is an actual like studio, but it's an actual grocery store inside. So I mean, I would have loved to shop there. It's like the best place to shop. But what they do is they bring you in for a quick tour, like a 5-minute tour, and they're like, these are the aisles. And what you don't see is a couple of the aisles that you don't see on the TV are filled with equipment and plates and things that you can grab when you need to grab them when you're trying to figure out what you're going to plate. So those aisles you never see on the show, because they're full of equipment and plating, like all the cool plates, glassware, anything you could need. And then equipment like steam cookers, or you name it, they have it there. Waffle irons.
So do you, based on kind of what the challenge is before you're going with the carts? No, I know, but do you get to figure out, like, do you tell them what equipment you would need, like, after they announce the challenge, but before you go with the carts? You just have to go right away?
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's just as insane as it looks. That's what it is. Like, you get like, you're standing there, like, with the cart. There's a camera in front of you. There's like 3 cameramen for each person.
Oh, I've seen them run. They work out.
Yeah. And then if you look back, before the show starts, they have you stand on a ladder really high in the grocery store. And
to do your,
They take like a little video around you so they can get you up. But I was like, this is how they do it? They put you on top of a ladder? All these fun little tricks.
I was going to say, I love all these secrets.
Yeah, and then they amp you up and they tell you to run out, and you know, they announce you. So they announce everybody. and then you go to your carts. But the best part was we got to meet Guy beforehand, because I think
cool.
they know everyone is really nervous to meet him. So they actually take time while they're giving the other group the tour to have you chat, take a photo, meet him, chat with him, and kind of like feel less nervous.
That's nice. Yeah, because I always wondered, because I feel like that would be so overwhelming to literally just run out and be like, cameras, Guy, and I have to go cook on a timer. You know, that's a lot all at once. So that's nice that they give you that time. But also,
I thought it was really sweet. And we had trailers, like, but we all were together
cute.
in a trailer. So all the contestants were together. And so we got time to chat with each other and know each other a little bit, and kind
do
of
you still keep in contact with the other contestants?
Yeah, and I'm keep in contact with one of the contestants on the other show too, because we met 8 people, right? So you just vibe with certain people, and I vibed with this girl, and so I keep in contact with her via Facebook, and she had a baby and all this stuff in the time we met, so it was really cool. And even though we only really met for a couple hours, you know, it's like you either vibe with them or you don't, and I happen to vibe with her. She's from Wisconsin, so we're Midwest girls. And but yeah, it was super fun. So we got a trailer, and then we got to go meet Guy, and then we got to go back to the trailer until they called us out, and then we got called in, and we didn't know if we were going to be the first show or the second. I was hoping the first, because it takes like 4 hours to tape.
Yeah.
Between
and also, you probably, the tension is building up too if you're the second group, right? Like
anxiety attack, you know. And I'm never anxious, but I was like, oh, I'm on national TV. I don't want to look like an idiot, right? But yeah, we met Guy. He's super nice, so nice. And then they hook us up, and they literally tell us right then what we're doing. So you have to think on your feet. And with ours, they asked us to make a spicy dish, and I am like West Michigan spice, which means nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like I have a Dutch mouth. Like for me, I was like the worst. All in all, everything that happened that day was like the worst possible scenario for me, because later on you see that they also give me offal, which I'm a vegetarian, so I'm never cooking offal, because
that's like sheep stomach, right?
No, any offal you wanted to choose from.
Oh, but that's stomach, right?
No, offal is any of the organs.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was you. I thought you meant any animal stomach.
Anything gross that you like. It could be brain. It could be tongue. It could be like thymus glands. Like all the things that I like. I feel like even when I did the interview with them in the casting, I was like, the one thing I don't want to cook is offal, and that's what.
And they knew, like,
that's probably why they gave it to you. You know,
pretty sure that's why.
Nice one.
When you get to go on in the future, tell them the only thing I don't want to cook is, and then it's like the thing that you're best at cooking. Yeah.
So they tell us we had to cook our best spicy dish. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make pescatore. I'm like, that'll be good. Squid ink pasta, it'll look cool on TV. Like these are all things going through my mind. And then halfway through, I have all my product, and they say you have to add offal to your dish. And I was like, say what? And I literally like mentally blocked. And you can see me at one point talking to Guy, and we're going back and forth. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so he actually helped me. He said, okay, this is what you're making. This is what I would do. And I said, okay, bingo, I'm going to do it. And so I did. The reason I got kicked off was because I didn't put enough of it in, because it grossed me out. And I didn't realize. I thought I just had to put it in there. I didn't know it had to be like main.
Like star of the dish. Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I just have to get it in there. And once it's in there, and I don't want it to be overpowering, right? Because I don't want it to be the only thing they taste. So that was my mental block. And then I was like, what? You know, so when they tasted it, it's funny because they edit out everything. You know, they edit out a lot.
Yeah.
So I had Troy, and I had Carl. And Carl and Guy are like buddies. So they were talking the whole time that the camera was off. And Troy was my favorite by far. He was so kind and so nice. And Carl is hilarious. Like, I followed him on social media before I even went, and I just was devastated when he was gone, because I looked forward to his funny posts, and just his personality was great. So so it was just fun to have those judges. All the judges were great, and they actually signed a plate for all of us and like wrote our name. Like, it's in my restaurant. You can come see it.
That's so nice.
I know. Everyone signed the plate and said Chef Jenna and wrote underneath, and it was really cool.
I love that. I also love that Troy was your favorite because Sarah and Caleb, Troy is like a food writer. He's not a chef, so they always give him a hard time on the show. Like, Guy calls him like Toy Boy Johnson because and then occasionally when he'll have to compete, they're always like, what's this food writer doing? And then he'll end up making like an amazing dish. Like,
I follow him on social too because I really like his cheeky personality. And he was really, really nice. Like,
I love that.
You know how like some people aren't so nice?
Yeah.
But they super nice. It was just a great experience.
I love that.
All around. I'm happy I did it. Looking back, I'm happy I did it, but like it was really nerve-wracking.
Well, especially because it's become such a large platform, right? And it is such a watched show. And so I guess that leads into kind of the second part of what I was curious about is like, how has it impacted your like real world life since being on the show? Because it's so different. Like we talked about it a little bit off mic. It's so different from any other type of reality show, right? Because like you're not somebody that made a fool of themselves on like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, right? You're somebody who came on, showed how talented you are, really charmed America, and then came back to your regular life that also is a business, right? Is a business and a community and a nonprofit that really is doing so much in Grand Rapids and West Michigan and beyond. So that must have had this like real world tangible impact. Like, can you talk a little bit about after the show aired and how it's kind of helped Amore grow and your nonprofit? Like, has that been a positive aspect? Has it really increased visibility? And, you know, if there are any negatives too, feel free, you know, this is Vent Sesh corner. You can talk about whatever, but I just imagine it must be so much more tangible, you know?
So if I look back on since before I opened Amore until now, I think the best thing I did for myself first was offer to cater for Snoop Dogg when he came to town. And I knew the owner of the section, and I called him. I said, hey, I want to cater for Snoop Dogg for free. Like, I just want a photo op with him, and that will just, you know, it'll be worth anything I'm paying to feed the staff, like the whole Snoop crew. And that was like the smartest thing I ever did, because then I had the photo on the wall and people were like, you know Snoop? I'm like, no, I met him once, but I don't know him. But it's fun because I also grew up listening to Snoop. So it was extra special, and he was really nice too. He was one of the first major celebrities I met. Now I have a whole wall of them, but to meet him and for him to be so cool really sparked kind of a vibe in me that I wanted to continue to do. So that was number one. Guys Grocery Games probably is number two on that level. People love seeing me on national TV, and I'll get Snapchats from friends that'll be like, we're watching your episode right now, or whatever, because it plays more than I ever thought it would, which is great. And it will continue to play every Halloween as long as Guy is doing it. So it's just fun when it goes through, and I always hoped it would get to Italy so my family there could see it and it would be translated, but I don't know if it goes over there. But just, it's fun, and it's a good conversation piece, and people just kind of like perk up if they're fans, you know, of Guy. They perk up and they want to ask questions about him, and it's just a fun conversation piece more than anything. And it's something I'm glad I did, and I'm glad it was under my belt. And then number three was Mike Rowe when he came, and that was also amazing too. So like, it's been a pretty good couple of years.
I'm not going to lie or try to be cool guy. I fully cried at your Mike Rowe episode. Fully cried. Like, I know, Caleb, your mom really likes Mike Rowe, right?
Can you guys just do a quick overview of what happened there?
Oh, yeah. The Returning the Favor. So one of my customers nominated me to be on a show called Returning the Favor, which is Emmy Award winning, by the way. And then they canceled it. The best show on Facebook. Canceled.
It was the dumbest decision. It was really so good. Was. Yeah.
And everyone needs a pick-me-up story, a feel-good story right now. Why would you take that away? Like, why? So we were pretty devastated. Mike Rowe is going to do whatever, awesome, no matter what he does. But I made friends with the producers, and that was just so cool to like have those connections with really awesome people doing really awesome stuff. And then I connected with other Returning the Favor episode people because we have the same things going on. So also building connections with people is my thing. But anyway, so one of my customers nominated me and somehow they found me, and I got a call from Lee. She was a producer. She was a page on SNL, and I'm like obsessed with SNL. And I'm like, you were a page on SNL? She's like, yeah. And then we just talked about those stories too. She has a sketch with David Letterman, and he's like hitting on her. It's like she sent it to me from back in the day. It's hilarious, but she has like really cool stories. Those always intrigue me. But anyways, he nominated me for Returning the Favor, and then they came and they did a little video, and Mike Rowe surprised me. She actually told me, I don't know, I think we're going to just talk to producers on this Friday, but it ended up being him that showed up on the screen. So they totally surprised me. I had no idea. That's why I look so surprised.
Well, and you're bearing the lead because you were nominated for feeding frontline workers.
Yeah.
You were doing the work in the community, which is a part of why I would imagine people have resonated with you so much too, is you're not just like away in your restaurant, like Scrooge McDuck style, jumping into piles of money from your Food Network fame. I'm sure you've got the piles of money. You just don't jump into them, but you are putting it back out into the community. You are giving back as much as I think people are getting from seeing you and seeing how joyful and open you are. And so I don't live in Grand Rapids anymore. I lived there for 5 years. Sarah and Caleb obviously do because they're part of the Wealthy Theater. But I am so impressed by everything that you've done, because even before I saw you on Food Network, you were doing like volunteer stuff for like nonprofit things when I was like working for like a real estate company, and they put on something and it was like a food competition in like an airport hangar, and you volunteered your time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know Sue Pastor. Yeah. Hey, Sue. So like you were already ready to like jump in and do these things and really be present and show up in your community. So I know I've talked a lot, and I know Sarah and Caleb probably have questions too, but do you want to have that lead into why you started Food Hugs?
Sure. First of all, I'm going to start by saying I don't have piles of money. No one who owns restaurants have piles of money. I'm going to tell
maybe
you right
piles
now,
of lasagna, though, right?
Yes.
I have piles of lasagna.
I'll jump into that. Thank you.
It's so funny that people think that we make money. We do it because we love it. There's no money in this business. Once the the feed goes through and everything's paid off, there's little left. And it's also funny that people think that the Tip Back Thursday that we've been doing is my money too. I'm like, no, this is crowdfunded. Like, I don't have $1,000 to tip people every week. This is something that the community is getting together to do. But it's funny that, how people perceive things is far from reality sometimes. But so Food Hugs, after I saw how awesome Tip Back Thursday was, and before that, doing the frontline work, feeding the frontline workers, I just always have this heart to give back, and I don't want that to stop. So this was my way of kind of pushing forward on that and starting Food Hugs, because I noticed, especially this year, how hard it was mentally, physically, just on everyone during COVID, and just a slice of tiramisu or lasagna just really changed people's days. So it's wild. It's like wild how something that small, and I noticed it. So I wanted to just kind of build on that. And then the tips, because the restaurant industry was hit so hard. I mean, if you watch any of my Tip Back Thursday videos, I have some TikToks. They're really, really great. And those are kind of tear jerkers too. I've had a few that were really like, I'm like in the back, like crying because these people have been through so much, and it's like, it takes time to say hello to people and smile right now. Sometimes that can change people's days.
For sure.
So Jenna, can you tell us about how people can get involved with Food Hugs and support what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So we have a website up now called foodhugs.org. There it is. Thank you. And we have a Venmo, which is where people have been donating. Yes, thank you. And mostly, and then there's a lot of people that are like, I'm worried about phone apps and cash. And I'm like, send me a check, like, to Food Hugs. If you're old school and that's what you prefer, we can do that too. Like, but foodhugs.org has all the information on it. And like I said, we're new. We're like a month old. We're literally super new. So I'm just trying to get the word out there about us. There's kind of 3 things under the umbrella. One is Food Hugs, which is, it could be anything. Like I did, sadly, I did a funeral for a 4-year-old's, my ex-coworker's 4-year-old accidentally drowned about a month ago. And I saw his GoFundMe page and I reached out to him and I said, hey, can we do your, can I help with funeral food? And he said, that would be amazing. So we just fed everyone at the funeral for no charge because people donated to Food Hugs and I was able to do that. And sometimes it's not food. Sometimes it's just picking someone up. Last week, it was makeup for a friend who has cancer like 3 or 4 times. And she's like, I just feel unattractive and down. And so I said, I'm going to hook you up with my friend Eric and he's going to make you feel beautiful. So it's like a whole umbrella of things. Tibback Thursday, Food Hugs, and then a scholarship for a girl who wants to be a chef. Because we still struggle to find people who will hire us as females in this industry. And I want to talk about that. And I want people to notice. And I think they really need to do better. I had like 22 years experience and people would look me in the eye and say, you don't have enough experience. I'm like, 22 years isn't enough for you? Is it because I have children? Like it was awful. So that's why I started Amore, because I was tired of people saying no to me. And I'm like, then I'll do it myself.
And haha, it's like the most popular restaurant in Grand Rapids. So.
Yes.
Sometimes people shutting the door in your face kind of changes your vibe, and you just break through and do your own thing.
And I know we might have some people listening who are not familiar with Amore. Maybe they're from out of town because we do post this as a podcast later. So could you tell us a little bit about your restaurant too?
Sure. So we are coming up on our 11th anniversary of Amore. Yay! And 11 is our lucky number because my husband is the baby of 11 children. And he was born on June 11th. And so this is our 11th year. He's turning 50 this year. So it's kind of a big year. And we're authentic Italian food. A lot of it is local farms that I use as well, not only for the vegetables, but for the proteins. And we just try to keep it fresh, local, but also what you would eat in Italy. And I have to be specific about this because if you haven't been to Italy, you don't know what I'm talking about. Italians don't eat like you think they eat if you've only been to an American Italian restaurant, meaning they don't eat spaghetti and meatballs ever, never, ever. They don't eat a lot of cream sauce. There are days where they do, but they don't eat ranch dressing, and people get real pissed off that I don't have ranch dressing here. Sorry, but it's authentic Italian, and we're doing what Italians would eat, which is balsamic or lemon juice on their salads. So, but we try to make everything from scratch. We make our bread fresh every day. We make tiramisu. We make everything here. So, and it tastes like we make everything here, and people have noticed that. So now my daughters, when we opened, my daughters were 3 and 5, and now they are 14 and 17. So they work here, which is really fun. And they like, well, my youngest especially is bougie and she likes nice things. So I'm like, you come to work, you can learn the value of $1, which is also really good for them. And the other one likes to be back of the house. So one is hostessing and one's dishwashing, and they're learning what it's like to make money. And I think that's important too. So it's a family business for sure now.
I love that so much. When I was growing up, I was raised by a single mother, and she worked in an Italian restaurant, and I have such fond memories of doing side work with her at the end of the night. And she made it a game to where I would sit on the vacuum and ride on it while she was vacuuming the restaurant and everything.
You have to make it fun.
You have to make it fun. And if you are a part of that life, it's such a, like you said, it's hard work. And so I'm so happy that, so much of your hard work and your dedication to the communities that you're a part of has really paid off, because I think that like every time I just see something with you, like you just, let me get this right. It was Grand Rapids Business Journal. You were the newsmaker of the year. You have this amazing spread and photo shoot. You're like covering yourself in flour. It's very avant-garde. I love it so much. Also, oh yeah, Brian Kelly. Oh, he's a great photographer. Also, we have a comment from one of our listeners that said they love your hair. So
it's been like this for a long time. You should see my car. I have a pink Infinity, and it's really fun.
Oh, I was like, does it have a pompadour on top too? Well, we're so just grateful that you've given us your time today. We know you have something at 7, so we won't keep you too long. But is there anything last minute that you want to promote or put out there? We will make sure to have all of your links in the show notes. And, when we repost this, we'll tag your Facebook page as well. But is there anything that, you want people to know, or just, you mentioned earlier, especially with COVID, it being so hard on the restaurant industry, if people aren't local to Grand Rapids and can't come in and see you and get some amazing balsamic dressing salad, or, not offal, but awesome, desserts and homemade bread, what could they be doing to help, their local favorite restaurants?
So number one thing is be kind to the staff. Number 2, tip well. They have had a tough year. Number 3, get takeout twice a week, at least. If you can get takeout more than twice a week, do it. But tip your takeout too. The takeout people are really putting your order together for you like they would if they were inside the restaurant. People don't realize that. But the truth is, the same amount of work goes into it. When they have to put it in a bag, make sure it's correct, and deliver it to your car. Sometimes in terrible conditions, like in the snow, in the rain, they're coming out to your car. They're giving you a service. So think about tipping well. And if you can, tip big. They'll remember you forever if you do. They will not forget you, and you're going to make someone's day. And if it's not a tip, if you don't have the money, go on and leave a nice review. Nice reviews are the best free thing you can do for a restaurant. Say something nice. We're one of the industries that gets attacked the worst, and we make the least amount of money. So give us a break, give us a nice review, be kind to the staff, pleases and thank yous, and all those things. Sometimes people forget, and just be kind to each other, whether you're in a restaurant or not.
I think those are good words of wisdom, and I'll throw in there, be sure to go to Amore and get some arancini.
Yes.
And that tiramisu is so dank. And then don't you guys also make your own limoncello and chocolatello?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't even handle it. Yes, so yes. I think I know what I'm doing for dinner this weekend.
Yeah, come see me. Oh, also, I don't know when this is going to air, but we're doing Mother's Day. So Mother's Day menu is up. A lot of people aren't going to be open because it's only 6 tops that you can have. And so a lot of families are way bigger than 6. So we have a lot of Taking Big items that you can pick up and cook for your mom so she doesn't have to do it.
That's really the best gift of all on Mother's Day. Speaking as a newish mother, I don't want to cook in a single pan, and I love cooking, but please get me something that has a lid on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chef Jenna. This was so fun. I'm so grateful that you were able to come on and squeeze us in. And absolutely. Everybody, go to Amore, go to foodhugs.org, and go watch. If you have Food Network app, you can literally go watch her episode. It's so fun. Oh, yay!
We'll have merch soon too, so look for that. But you can follow us on Facebook as well.
Oh, awesome. Well, we will link all of the links for your Facebook, the Food Hugs Facebook, Amore's Facebook, all that will go in the show notes. And thank you so much. We hope you have a great rest of your night.
Yeah,
thank you, Jenna.
Bye.
Bye. Oh,
what
I
a
love
treat.
Her so much.
She's so delightful. Also, it makes me really be like, okay, I need to do something with my hair, because
I know.
Just this one look, because I gotta spruce it up.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I need to do something with putting food into my mouth right now.
I am so hungry. And seriously,
this is
if you
ridiculous.
guys haven't had Amore, especially the arancini, like I could just eat that. It's like these deep fried little.
Oh yeah, like
I think
rice
it's
and cheese,
risotto.
right?
Yeah, and then cheese in the middle, and you dip it. I love it.
I gotta say that her restaurant is like on the top of my list of all the places that I haven't been in Grand Rapids. I still haven't gone there, and
Oh
it's
my
just
gosh.
like, why?
Well, it sounds
I
like you have
haven't
plans
been
this
there.
weekend,
Do
and
it,
you better eat
yeah.
lasagna for both of
Oh
us
my God.
because
And
I'm not there.
the lasagna she makes is so awesome. It's like, I know I'm going to say the wrong number, but something like 13 layers of lasagna, and it's these really
Oh.
thin pieces of pasta. So good.
Well,
So
and if you haven't seen her episode, it really is so fun. And I loved hearing her talk about, the kind of behind the scenes of the show. And honestly, it kind of is one of those things where I literally was like, I'm sure you guys saw my face. Like I was fully geeking out, but it was that element of hearing how kind everybody was, and how nice everybody genuinely was during that kind of tense atmosphere. That was so nice. But it goes back to what we were kind of talking about before she hopped on, which is like the psychology of these kind of shows is different than the psychology of other reality presenting television. And I think that that's why it's become as popular and ubiquitous, as it has been. And I don't want to keep everybody too long, but I do want to just run through a little bit of my context corner because I never have it. And now that I'm the context corner czar, if you will, I feel like I need to give some, context.
Temporary czar.
Listen,
Temporary czar,
you
okay.
relinquished your crown, sash?
Sash.
Throne?
Let's go with sash.
What do czars have? A scepter?
I loaned it.
You loaned me your scepter. I'm taking it and carrying it proudly. I clearly need a history lesson because I don't really know what czars are adorned with. I'm assuming just unfettered power. I don't know.
Unfettered power. Really on a roll tonight with these great phrases.
I love it.
But so I briefly talked about before we started kind of the very first ever cooking show, 1946 in the UK. I think we might have a slide for it.
Yes, girl, we do. Here it comes.
Yes.
That looks like such a fun show.
Look at this Hulk man. Wait, this way. Philip Harbin wearing a very fashionable apron, but like flipping a pancake midair, like a cool guy, I guess. I was going to say a curse word and then caught myself. But I like this photo because it's like, this like one kind of burner, he's basically cooking on a tabletop. It's very lo-fi, especially for what we know now as, the cooking shows that we watch. But I love that this was 1946. This was UK. Concurrently in 1946, we also had a show in America hosted by James Beard. If you are familiar with that name, it's because he was such a famous cook. I actually got one of his books at a used book sale. It's called Beard on Bread, and I love it so much. But he was so well revered and kind of ubiquitous that the James Beard Award is named after him, which is an award now that is given out yearly in different regions. So there's Southeast region, Northeast, all that, Midwest. But it's given out to these extraordinary chefs and restaurateurs who are really making an impact in food culture, right? So as early back as like, what is that? I can't do math, like 80 years, almost 70 years, something like that. Like Fantasia came out in 1940. So like a lot was happening in the 40s in terms of culture. And I really like this because what we started seeing was something that we do regularly on television. And for a lot of us, scripted narrative television, I mean, we were just talking about, as a possible, screen club option was like WandaVision. If you're talking about the technicality and the narrative encapsulation of how thick WandaVision is and compare it to something as simple as, James Beard or Julia Child cooking in front of a camera, making you this dish almost in real time. I mean, Chef Jenna did mention that obviously it's edited down, but for a lot of these shows, Rachel Ray, she's going to cook you a meal in 30 minutes. That's the whole premise of her show is 30-minute meals. So you're going to watch something from beginning to end with commercials, obviously, but you're going to watch something that feels possible, feels doable. And even if it's a little bit out of your reach, it feels like something you can aspire to because you have some, if not all, of the very same ingredients in your kitchen because food the preparation of food is so integral to us staying alive as human beings, because we have to eat food. And so I love it when we start really getting into this, because it's like, it's so democratic in a way, and it feels so approachable. And so for you guys, Caleb, you mentioned you didn't bake. Sarah, you mentioned you did bake. Have there been any shows that you've watched? Like, were you inspired by Great British Baking Show, Sarah, to start making some cool stuff? Or were you like, like Caleb, are there like cooking shows that you watch that make you want to be like, oh, I can make fresh pasta or do whatever, like, has there been things that have inspired you that you've seen that have made you want to take your own personal cooking to the next level?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, as someone who is not a baker, and honestly, I don't have much of a sweet tooth. I don't have, like, when I see a sweet thing on screen, it doesn't necessarily make me drool. But whenever I would watch Great British Baking Show, I just knew I had to have something ready, even if it was just a single chocolate bar, just to grab a little piece off of it, because there was no way I was going to get through a whole episode and just sit there, with a glass of water. So, and definitely, I haven't seen as many of these shows as you guys have, but, to me, I'm a huge fan of Anthony Bourdain, and especially his sort of world travel shows. Anytime that he is in a country that I likely will never go to, I always love to see him try really extreme things. I sort of fantasize sometimes about being that guy who's traveling the world, and they've got the beetle guts scooped out, and they're like, here's what we eat, and I'm like, all right, sure, why not? What's the worst that could happen? So I kind of like, I get some satisfaction seeing somebody just go for whatever the locals are doing, and that makes me want to just try more extreme things, or just get out of my comfort zone. Or it always makes me think, let's order something that we would normally never have.
I'm gonna piggyback off of your note about Anthony Bourdain. Although I am not one that would see someone eating beetle guts and say, yes, that sounds delectable, let me give it a go.
What about Beetlejuice?
Well, say it 3 times and I will definitely jump
See,
in on that.
You have the one-liners tonight too. You've got those zingers.
All the zingers. The zingers are, there we go, new title. But with Anthony Bourdain, I love to kind of live vicariously through him as he's going on these journeys, because even though I probably wouldn't be brave enough to try it, it's kind of neat to see him try it, and then to have these really genuine conversations with people and learn about their culture and, the history of why a certain part of the meal is like a staple of their culture. So I love that, but I love it just as much as the more laid back, how do you want to say, passive style shows, like Great British Baking Show, or, any of those. They're both great, and they're both really valuable, and you can still learn a lot and get a lot of the catharsis and living vicariously through each of them. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to Food Network, because it's a wide variety of stuff, not only types of foods and different cultures and personalities, but just the style of show that you could get lost in. They have a really great lineup.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of Food Network, getting back to kind of the history of in America, it started in 97. That's when we're seeing the rise of people like Emeril and, like you mentioned, Giada De Laurentiis. There are these people now that if you were to say food show, people are going to think of Bobby Flay. They're going to think of, Gordon Ramsay. They're going to think of these people that, whether they actively watch them or not, they're a conscious part and an unconscious part, really, of the culture, and a part of the things that we consume and how we process things, right? We know that if Gordon Ramsay thinks that somebody makes a beef Wellington not that great, we're like, well, he would know, he pioneered beef Wellington in America, and in the UK, So we see kind of this rise of these personalities and this idea of a celebrity chef. And I love it because, obviously our perspective is American culture, but it didn't just happen in America. One of the biggest food shows in the world to this day is a show called Iron Chef that was based out of Japan and ran for like 6 seasons. And now we have Iron Chef America, Iron Chef Gauntlet, next Iron Chef. Do I know the entire Iron Chef property? Absolutely. It's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe to me. And I'll tell you right now that one of the original Iron Chefs, his name is Morimoto. This is his last name. I cannot pronounce his first name, and I will not try because I don't want to be disrespectful. But he was one of the original Iron Chefs. The premise of Iron Chef was that all of these gentlemen were Iron Chefs. They were masters of a particular cuisine. So French, Italian, Chinese, Japanese, right? And they'd get together in this battle arena. Kitchen Stadium is really what it's called, in case you're wondering. And it was hosted by a chairman who would do flips, and then he'd take a bite of a pepper. And then when they brought it over to America, his nephew was the chairman, and he did flips, and he took a bite of an apple. And it was crazy because you were like, what a callback, but also Americanized, because what's more American than an apple? I get it. So we're seeing this show that really, like, I remember so clearly watching it late night when I would be staying over at my grandma's house and she'd be babysitting, and they didn't have subtitles. They had somebody dub it in an American voice, and everybody, they would use a lot of the same voice actors. So some of the judges, they'd be different on different episodes, but they'd sound exactly the same because they were using the same person to dub their voices. And it was so cool and so just interesting and dramatic. And Morimoto was one of the Iron Chefs on the original show. And then he came over and became Iron Chef America. So he's with Bobby Flay. He's with the guy with the orange hair. And I'm kind of blanking on his name right now, but he wears like Crocs all the time. It'll come to me. But he cooks Italian
what is
food.
his name?
I don't know. I'm picturing him in my head and I can't think of it. Yeah. But, he basically, there was this crossover then, right? So fans of the original show could then kind of feel like, okay, this is going to be an import, but we're going to be in good hands. And then you have, basically an Americanized version of it, but then that can birth this whole other franchise. And you've got Alton Brown basically being the host. And for fans of diners, drive-ins, and dives, Alton Brown was someone who actually kind of pioneered that style of show because he did a show called Feasting on Asphalt. It was for like 3 seasons. It premiered a year before Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives did. And his whole premise was that him and his crew were going to ride on motorcycles. And the first season, they went up the Mississippi River. And the second season, they went across from Florida to California. And the third season, they did feasting on water or something like that. And they were on boats. It was awesome. It was so cool and very low res, but Alton Brown is a filmmaker. Mario Batali, of course, your mom knew, Caleb. I love that. Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it. But there's all of these kind of there's a richness to all of this that I think goes so much further than frosted tips and backwards sunglasses, because while we are attracted to the personality, I think what ends up sticking is the talent and the connection with people. Because if we were watching people that didn't know how to cook, it wouldn't be interesting,
I want to jump in on that actually, and I'm so glad that you included Alton Brown specifically because he's another one of my favorites, and I don't know why he didn't come to mind when you asked about shows. I mean, aside from that infomercial that I have to mention. But Alton Brown, his... I'm sorry if I'm kind of cutting out. I know my Wi-Fi is a little funky, but Good Eats, it was like an all-time favorite show for me. I love it because it gets into the quirky trivia about stuff, and I love nonfiction and understanding how the world works and, tinkering and understanding the why behind everything. And Good Eats is... it's a perfect show for really curious people who aren't necessarily great at cooking, because he breaks it down of, why the food would kind of turn out this way, like the science behind it. But the other thing, the last thing that you said, Virginia, about like the real talent that's there with these shows and getting to know the true personalities of these shows, I know that there are several examples with Food Network specifically of people who had to kind of do a lot of heavy lifting for their shows. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be very wrong, so feel free to correct me or we can delete this, but I think that Alton Brown had something to do with the cinematography of his show and was part of kind of like the tech and camera crew or guiding it. Do you know more about that?
You're correct. Of course I do. I didn't even put it in the slides, but it's there. So Alton Brown went to film school originally. He was planning on being a filmmaker and then kind of fell into cooking and doing this show. And if you look at the early iterations of Good Eats, which I put 1999 to present because there's a Good Eats reboot that happened. And so he's doing Good Eats again. There was a kind of break in between, but now it's like Good Eats Reloaded or something like that. But you
those
are
are really beloved cookbooks too, right? I just remember working in a bookstore. The Good Eats books were just like perennial gift items for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like a project, right? You're not just getting a recipe, you're getting, like you said, it's like the why of it and the how of it. And that for people who are curious and like the alchemy and science of cooking, you know, it's like the best show. But you're correct. He does, you know, I think he even writes some of the like interstitial sketches in between as he's like doing stuff. But he was really integral. And the whole cool thing about Feasting on Asphalt was that his crew, obviously, it was like they traveled on motorcycles. So what they shot with was what they could travel with on motorcycles. So you'd see oftentimes he'd be holding like a little GoPro, or he'd be holding a tiny, you know, he'd be out riding his motorcycle and holding like the selfie stick, but it was, you know, early 2000s. So it's a GoPro. And you look back on it, and especially now with how amazing technology has gotten, you kind of look back on some of these older shows and you're like, wow, like that was a little rough around the edges. But if you look at the cuts, if you look at the editing choices, if you look at kind of how it was put together, the vision was always there, even though technology, you know, caught up with Good Eats for this Reloaded. They were doing the same kind of stuff in the original show. It just was a more kind of like practical versions of doing it. So they'd have practical props, they'd have practical tearaway and rollaway sets. He loved to film from inside the cupboards. So like he opened a cupboard. It's the best inside the fridge, you know, all this stuff that now we kind of take it for granted because we have such highly produced shows. You know, he was a real pioneer with kind of mixing, especially with Good Eats. It's so silly, you know? So he's mixing a lot of these like jokes and kind of funny bits into the show. So you're not really getting bored in any way. You are just fully engrossed. And Mary wanted everyone to know that he is coming to Grand Rapids in the fall because he's got a tour called Beyond the Eats. I also wanted to shout out there is another person watching, Dixie, who she said, y'all are making me so hungry with all this food talk. I'm about to start making homemade biscuits, my grandmother's recipe with sausage gravy, which I love that.
Send those to Wealthy Theater. I'm hungry.
Yeah, I have an alternate address as well.
Vacuum pack those.
We'll DM you the addresses. Real quick though, I just had a thought with Good Eats. I think a big reason why I personally really love this show is also because it's very reminiscent of Bill Nye the Science Guy. You know, just like the style of it, the practical effects, the you know, weaving in the humor into the lessons. It's very reminiscent of that, and I love it. It's adorable, but then you're also learning a lot when you're watching it too, you know?
That's cool. That show has been on my radar since I have a couple of friends who are really just obsessed with that, and for some reason I've just never seen it, but I love the idea of somebody wanting to innovate within this genre too. You know, they look at these shows from the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, and it's a stationary camera, and maybe there's a cutaway to a close-up every once in a while, but that's pretty much all you get. And then they think, okay, you know, it's the 90s, it's this Food Network push, it's all of a sudden like this big in vogue thing, like let's move it to the next level. We got to make this visually entertaining. Let's put some jokes in here, let's get personality in here. Not that those older shows didn't have it, but to craft a show, you know, based on the sensibilities of the time and go, you know, we got to modernize this. I think it's interesting to see it, you know, to see like a supercut overview of the different decades of it up till now, where now it's just like pure entertainment, you know, and something like, you know, even like Great British Baking Show is just like mastered it basically. Like if you have no interest in food, you can sit back and watch that show. even if, you know, even if you don't like the people, there's going to be a cutaway to a little duck or something, or, you know, a beautiful swan every once in a while.
Or even the illustrations. I know we talked about that
the
in
illustrations,
our Great
yeah.
British Baking Show episode.
Incredible.
I just love it. You know, another thing I wanted to bring up, since the show, this episode in particular, is revolving around Guy Fieri and then Chef Jenna's experience with him, I think it's just so fitting that she was on his show, even though it was a different one than the one that he's known for, which is the Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. But just thinking about the concept of the show, that he's just going restaurant to restaurant, and it's a lot of family-owned places. I don't think that he goes to any place that's, you know, like commercial or whatever, like a McDonald's, of course. You're not going to do that. But he's going to all these places, and he's getting to know the people that run the restaurants and make the food and come up with these recipes that probably are like tied to their family and have great stories to it. And I know that's one thing that I love about Amore, is that, you know, Jenna and her family will go to Italy to visit her, I think it's her mother-in-law who lives there, and learn the recipes of Italian cooking and bring it back here. So with the show Triple D, he's going to these restaurants and getting these stories. And then, before we hopped on to record this, Virginia, you were telling us that there's actually like a restaurant tour that you can do and go visit these. Was it some of the other ones that Food Network covers, or tell us about that?
So yeah, it's kind of a grassroots thing that I think some people put together that were just fans of the show. But basically you can Google it, and there is like a road trip map that you can kind of plan, where every time you would stop, you're hitting a place that Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives has gone to. And I just think that that's such a testament to kind of how people have really taken it. And what we were talking about with Jenna, how that real world impact has been, because, you know, we're talking about, like you said, family run businesses, family recipes passing down from generation to generation, which is in its own way a form of storytelling and story keeping, right? This idea that your ancestors have given you a thing, like Dixie, who just commented, that's my sister. So those biscuits she's about to make, those are my grandma's. My grandma just passed about a week and a half ago, and I have such fond memories of being at her house on the weekends. And she would always make an extra pan of biscuits when my brother Travis would come home from college, because she would literally just Ziploc him a whole pan and send them back with him because he loved them so much. And we just, I mean, I had a biscuit bar at my wedding. Like, it's such a familiar, and I'm kind of getting a little emotional because my grandma just passed, but there's a familiarity to it that you cannot, like, a can of biscuits that I get out of my fridge is not going to have the same impact on me as these biscuits will be. And I'm not a great baker, but my sister is. So she's learned it. I'm going to have her teach me so that eventually my son can grow up eating my Mima's biscuits, you know? And so there's this generational, chain that's built, and a show like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and Feasting on Asphalt. And I'm sure there's many shows like it, but what these shows do is not only give a platform nationally to small businesses, but it gives a platform to these stories, you know? And I wrote it in the outline for today. I didn't do a slide of it, but everyone, if you can, please Google a comedian named Shane Torres, because he has a bit on Conan that's about 5 minutes long. And it is talking about Guy Fieri and why he's great. And, you know, I won't even try to do the bit at all because I would just ruin it, but it is fully worth the 5 minutes that you would spend watching it. And it really, in his kind of set, like all comedy, there's such kernels of truth in that, being like, he's just a good dude who like officiates, you know, LGBTQ weddings and feeds first responder firefighters during, you know, California wildfires, and Tournament of Champions, the newest season that he did, it's TOC2. He hosted TOC1. He's an executive producer, which leads me to believe it was probably his concept. He jumped on it. It's this mega competition of all these really high quality, famous chefs that we know. So it's like the best of the best, which is almost kind of cooler than some of the regular competitions, because you know that the quality is going to be amazing. At the end of every round of TOC2, the winner that would advance, it's like a bracket I told you that was the only bracket I was following was Tournament of Champions. The person that I thought would win didn't win, but that's okay. They'll be seated high next year. So at the end of every round, the winner that advanced not only got to advance, they got $10,000 donated in their name to the restaurant of their choice. So if you're talking about a bracket of 16 people, by the time they got down to the final two, those people had already been able to, on their behalf, donate $30,000 to local restaurants that they knew and loved and wanted to help during the pandemic. So there's a real world application to this kind of television that I'm not saying it doesn't exist anywhere else, but what I am saying is like, I feel like, and I very passionately just like gave a dissertation on this. I feel like this kind of television should get more respect maybe than it sometimes does, because it is deeper. It is more involved. There is something there that, sure, do the guys' grocery games scripts have as much depth as maybe, an entire season of Schitt's Creek? Probably not. Different levels of writing. But am I entertained on the same level hearing Guy make, egg-related puns? And there's a little egg counter that comes up in the corner and counts all the times he makes an egg-related pun that episode. And it's just like a little egg that's like cracked because he's like so tired of hearing all the puns. Of course. I love it so much. But there's also this real world element where it's like, okay, these are real people with real lives. And this person, these people, right? Guy Fieri specifically, but in general, the idea of a food show host, they're trying to make a difference in the world in the way that they know how. And that's by talking to people and cooking for them. And I think that that's something that we can all relate to, because how often do we, in the before times, obviously I'm on vaccine 1 of 2 right now, but I'm of course speaking of the before times, how often have we had friends over for a cookout or dinner or just any kind of situation where you're like, oh, come over and watch a movie. Oh, I made these snacks. Oh yeah, it's my mom's recipe or whatever. That applies in our lives so often, and almost to the point that we don't think about it. And so I just love, and I'm so grateful that you guys gave me this like weird platform to talk about this, because I love it so much. And I think that there's so much value in kind of what we've been doing with Screen Club and Cinema Lab this whole season, past seasons, in taking just like a little bit of time to look deeper into things, look deeper into, comedy, famously kind of always overlooked as something that can't be emotionally, impactful. That's not true. We've seen Schitt's Creek have some of the most deep impact and profound change-making ability since it's been on, right? Like Great British Baking Show, we did an episode of that. Like, I think when you take time to genuinely just like think about the things we consume and why we do and how they impact us, we talk about it all the time. That's the idea of media literacy. I think you can really recognize how important and impactful a lot of the things that we watch actually are. And you realize they're things that you do want to pass down to your children. You do. I can't wait to show my kid Guy Fieri. You know how great that's going to be? Like, there's a Chicken Guy restaurant in downtown Disney, close to where we're moving. But then on top of that, these shows are going to be on forever. I'm going to be able to show my kid original Iron Chef and then be like, but wait, and then introduce him to Alton Brown. It's going to be amazing. And so I'm glad that I got to kind of geek out about this a little bit tonight. And it was so fun talking to Chef Jenna, because I think that it just has made my life brighter in a year where things have felt very dark in a lot of times. And so I hope other people can relate. And I'm sure that they all can, because that dude has a lot of followers on Instagram. So.
Well, and I think you summed it up really well, that I don't think the three of us even really considered the parallels of the discussion we were going to have tonight compared to the mission behind what we do with Cinema Lab and Screen Club, or even thinking about the connections between what Chef Jenna is doing with Food Hugs and everything for the community, the ways that she's been giving back even before that, and how there's a connection to the depth of food shows like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, But absolutely, I think the heart of what we're doing, what a lot of people who care do, is you're preserving story, you're understanding the depth to everything, you're spreading goodness and happiness all over the place and sharing very good recipes. And I'm really glad that we could end our season with this episode. Not only because I agree with Virginia that we needed a little break from the slasher stuff, but it's just a really a great metaphor for what we've been trying to do, is what we're seeing that these food shows do. So I really appreciate you suggesting this one. This has been really fun and really eye-opening, and I forgot how much I love these shows on Food Network, like Alton Brown. Gonna go check that out.
Literally the best. And I'm telling you, you can't really find Feasting on Asphalt a lot of places. Buy the DVDs. There's also a cookbook involved, and it like gives you the map to all the different places. It was great. Also, I just wanted a reason to show you guys my Halloween 2017 photo.
Oh yeah, hold on. I gotta pull that up.
Oh, I put it on. It was number 1 on the slides. So
Yeah,
it was there.
So let's take a look here. We got a celebrity in the photo. So there's Guy Fieri and the mayor of Flavortown. Oh my goodness.
Wow, the real mayor.
It's like
Rare
almost as cool
appearance.
as Mayor McCheese, I think, those two.
Well, and for
No,
those
I think
listening,
it's way cooler.
I was going to say, for those listening on Spotify, podcasts are famously a visual medium. So what you're looking at is a picture of me as Guy Fieri and my husband, who is always a sport. And every year when I make him do a couple's costume with me, I just made him a sash that said Mayor of Flavortown, and he just got to wear a suit that he already had. So it was very easy for him, but very fun for me. And I'll post this somewhere on social media so people can see it.
Perfect. I love it. Well, I think we've kind of covered everything that we had planned on talking about. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to throw in before we wrap things up?
No, I just wanted to agree with you guys that, I mean, I like stories, you know, no matter what form they take, no matter if they're true or false or made up or, you know, to whatever degree that is. But it's always my favorite part of any of these cooking shows when they go and they look at, you know, they show the person in their home. What's their space look like? You know, how do they pass along their traditions to their kids or to their partner or whoever it is? And, you know, that's when a show doesn't do that, I'm less interested. So I really like the ones, and I really like, you know, the mission of something like what Guy does, where he is going to specifically these places where it's a family-owned business, where you see, you know, the grandpa and the dad and the son working together under this, you know, in the same kitchen or something like that. So, you know, and it's like cooking is a narrative arc. You know, cooking, there is a beginning and a middle and an end. And everything you make is a story, and it might turn out to be a sad story, and it might turn out to be a happy ending, or it might just be a complicated tale. But, you know, there's really no difference than anything that's some scripted drama. So, you know, approaching it like that, I think that it's pretty fascinating to look at these. I'm not someone who would really ever watch a reality TV show unless it was something like this, unless it involved real people that weren't sort of being manipulated to be something other than they are. And I think that the cooking shows that we're talking about are the one place where you can usually count on that to be as authentic as it can be. So good vibes all around.
Yeah.
I thought, man, that was just such a perfect way to wrap it up, of cooking food being like a 3-act structure. I love it. The other thing I was thinking too is that for all of us being part of nonprofits, you get that kind of family vibe working for a nonprofit too, because everyone who's working here is doing it because they love whatever the mission is. So I think there are a lot of parallels to what we're doing, what the three of us are all about, all these food story shows, missions like what Jenna's doing with Food Hugs. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so I just want to pull up the information one more time for one more shout out to Chef Jenna. Again, thank you so much, lady, for hopping on this. That was
Thank you so much. It was so great.
An awesome part of the show. So if you haven't checked out her restaurant Amore, which is on Alpine, go check it out. Even if you just want to get food to go, it's amazing. And like she said, for Mother's Day, they're going to do some take and bake. They've got, you know, the pans of lasagna, the tiramisu. You cannot not get that tiramisu. It's incredible. And the arancini, don't forget about that. Just order like 5 orders of it. Trust me. And if you don't eat them, send them to me.
I would also like to echo her sentiment that, pandemic or none, if you don't tip well, first of all, don't go to restaurants. Second of all, go in your backyard and dig a big hole and throw yourself into it and then pull the soil on top of yourself and then just die. Just do that.
That's a little harsh. That's a little harsh. But
well,
yes, please.
The point is tip well.
Yes, please do tip well, even with the takeout, because like she said, restaurants are super limited with capacity, and it's already a thin profit margin with 100% capacity. So please help them out. Follow Chef Jenna on Facebook and Amore on Facebook too, and be sure to check out the website foodhugs.org. She does the Tip Back Thursday every week, but I know you can also just donate via Venmo if you want to help support all the causes that she mentioned. So shout out to Chef Jenna. All right, you guys, as I said, this is the last episode for the season. We will be taking the summer off. Not sure what we're going to be programming for the fall and what the dates are exactly, but anyone who has recommendations on movies and or shows that they're watching over the next couple of months, let us know. You can message us on Facebook and Instagram too, same handles, at Wealthy Theater or at CinemaLabGR. And tell us what you want us to talk about, or if you want to join the conversation. We are all ears. As a reminder, Screen Club and Cinema Lab are programs of Wealthy Theater, which is part of the Grand Rapids Community Media Center, a multimedia nonprofit organization that is home to the likes of public access GRTV, community radio 88.1 FM WYCE, citizen journalism platform, The Rapidian, and then our beautiful 110-year-old venue.
It doesn't look a day over 109.
I know, right?
Hey.
I've seen that crown molding, okay? That's some vintage kind of stuff.
That's good. So good. So if you're enjoying these programs, please consider making a donation to our nonprofit as well. You can go to grcmc.org/donate. You can also go to wealthytheater.org/donate. And your donations certainly help programs like this continue. So do consider that, because all of us are really struggling right now, but we want to make sure that we're providing this content, this access to media literacy, regardless of COVID restrictions. So there's a little pitch for that tonight. All right, you guys, I can't wait until we can kick it back off in the fall. But in the meantime, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about Guy Fieri. I know, Virginia, this was asking a lot of you. I'm so sorry.
What a stretch.
I really just, listen, I've said it before, and I'm not going to cry or anything this time, but like, I genuinely, like, this whole year being able to have Cinema Lab and Screen Club to look forward to, every month, and to know that there was going to be this time where we got to be together, the three of us, and sometimes with, guest panelists, but then with our guests, with the listeners. Like, it's just been such a great place of community in a year where it's felt so hard to have community. So I'm genuinely, like, aside from the fact that you gave me like an hour plus to talk about my love of all things Flavortown, I'm just so grateful that we have created this weird little corner of the internet, and that, hopefully it's resonated with, our audience. I'm so grateful to the people that have tuned in, and the audience has continued to kind of grow. And, it's been a very bright spot for me this year. So I'm grateful for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Same.
I agree. All right, you guys. Well, that concludes our show. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's watching and listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook to hear about our next events. Until next time, it's been real. We'll see you guys.
Bye.
Later.